Cause you don't know football. Reek put us together like the Avengers. For the love of the game, this ain't for the pretenders. Used to strap them up, that's why we qualify. So when I tell you you don't know, I won't apologize. It get ugly on the gridiron, and I'm tired of watching all of these analysts misfire. This raw ain't politically correct, but either way you put it, man, we blessed. Tell y'all networks they should get hip to us. Moving on to big things when they pitch to us. A hot take can make you put on the gloves, but at the end of the day, it's all love. So as you gon' bring the stats to the room, or maybe the eye test to the Zoom, just know we appreciate y'all. But cause you don't know football, cause you don't know football, cause you don't know football.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Cuz You Don't Know Football. Y'all already know we about to give y'all this NFL work over here, okay? So you can tell all them other podcasts what it is. Yeah, I got my boy JB coming over. You know what I'm saying? He about to drop he about to give y'all some science on some fatal flaw teams. JB, can you hear me?
Yo.
What's up, man? JB.
What's going on?
Throw them fours up, yo.
I mean, what up, though?
Man.
Everything been good, man. You know, I'm back.
I know. So, listen, man, we about to get into the Fatal Flaw series. I picked two divisions for you. We got the NFC South and the AFC North. You think you can handle that?
Yeah. No, that ain't about nah.
We got the disrespect to this face. Like, come on, stop playing with me, Rick. You already know. So we just going to jump in. Now, for me, I always want to talk about the ass teams first, okay? Well, at least what I think is going to be bad. You could tell me I don't think they're going to be so bad, but, you know, maybe you should talk about them afterwards, but this is how we're doing it. So, let's talk first about these. Let's start in the AFC North. Let's go to the Cleveland Browns. I think that's a safe bet. Now, of course, everybody knows by now Myles Garrett traded to the Rams, but they got Jared Verse back, and I think that's a very underrated move to get Jared Verse back.
Very underrated.
With that said, and I know it's a litany list of things, Cleveland Browns, what's their fatal flaw? Why they not going to win the Super Bowl this year? Just one thing, if you could, or three.
I mean, yeah, there's 1,000, but I think the biggest focal point of them is the youth and inexperience of that team is from what they have, because there's a lot of things they just don't have yet or got to work with, but they have very little experience and they're very, very young, including their coach. So if you think their backfield, you know, Judkins, young. Think their wide receiver core, they're young. Tight end position, young. Only thing that's probably not really young is their offensive line. And they did acquire a couple pieces in the offseason for their offensive line too. But you got a coach. This is his first time being a head coach in the NFL. You got your quarterback situation. Even if you go with Deshaun Watson, if he looks good and you go with him, he hasn't played a lot in the past 5 years.
Correct.
So experience-wise, he's still very inexperienced. And then if you do decide to go with Shadir, young, inexperienced, you know what I mean? So just all across the board, they're too young. Defensively, the same thing. They do have, you know, you got you got Ward, you've got a couple other pieces in their defensive backfield, but like their star power on defense is young. Adding a Jared Verse to fill in for Myles Garrett, yes, right. It takes away from that experience, from that prime. You know, Jared Verse I'm not saying he could be Myles Garrett, but he can be a effective pass rusher in that realm one day, but he's young. So you're just dealing with a lot of youth, a lot of inexperience. And I think in a couple years, they're going to be a team to be watching out for. Not necessarily saying Super Bowl, but I just think that inexperience that they have, that's their biggest flaw, besides having to fill in pieces and stuff like that.
Okay. So I got one word to sum up Cleveland Browns. Culture. Okay. The team's culture, like some teams got to get past a culture ceiling that they have. It breaks down when it breaks down. Decision making, roster configuration, play calling, you know what I mean? Understanding who's good and who's not, the whole thing. And
Mm.
they've never really shaken that point where they can let go of what they're not good at or what we expect them to be as the Cleveland Browns. Until they get that together, until they prove that they can get that together, I think they're always going to be in this situation. Even when they had a certain level of success, even when they had a certain level of hope, we got back to the point where we're right here and we're questioning everything. You know what I mean?
I
So
think this is the culture shift, though. Just with the
this
way
year,
the game is
think this
today.
year.
Yeah, I think we're going to see the culture shift. I just think it's going to be so much inexperience that you're going to see exciting games, but they might end up in losses. You're going to see good decision making, but it's going to
Mhm.
be lack of. You know what I mean? So I think the culture part of it is going to start shifting starting this year. I just think once the experience gets there, then it'll be all put together to say, all right, this is a playoff team. This is that. You know what I mean? Things like
Right,
that.
right. I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, let's jump over. All right, let's take a jump over to the NFC South. Let's go with them Atlanta Falcons. And if you don't feel like they're going to be the worst team in the division, talk to me about that. But fatal flaw, Atlanta Falcons 2025-2026 season. Or this is 2026-2027 season. Sorry.
Honestly, I think coaching is going to be their biggest flaw. I don't like that they got rid of Raheem Morris. I think he was building something there and didn't have enough time to. Um, and now I just think they're gonna get set back because of that. They got good pieces. They did lose a couple pieces in the offseason. But yeah, I think it's going to specifically be coaching that's going to be their fault. And I don't necessarily think they'll be the worst team in the division, but I do see that division still being the same way we was questioning them last season.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the same thing this year, and it's very possible that they can be at the bottom at the end of the day.
Okay. So I tend to agree with you about Raheem Morris. The only problem that I have with that take is that Kellen Moore and what he did the last half of the season with the New Orleans Saints, they won like 6 straight games. You know what I mean? They turned the season around, they turned the corner. In a year where I was saying at the beginning of last year, I was saying I hope no black head coach takes the New Orleans Saints job because you're not going to be able to fix that this year. And he showed promise with that. So, with
Yeah,
that said,
that's true.
it's hard. That would be my pushback on what you said.
That's
With that
not. I
said,
mean,
I liked what you said. Go ahead. No, say what you're going to say.
that's cool. I get that. Me personally. I'm not sold on Kellen Moore.
Mm-hmm.
I do think he does some good things, but I think we get a lot of times we get caught up in the hype of who a guy is, and we'll praise all of the good, and we won't necessarily we'll forget the bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think coming
I get
into
you.
this kind of situation, I think he got lucky in New Orleans. I think nobody was checking for them. They had a young quarterback that just came in and started playing lights out, and people could say that is geared towards him and the way he runs his offense.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still not the full believer that that is always the case. I think
Gotcha.
sometimes things happen. So that's kind of why I'm not. I don't think that's like the best replacement from what Raheem Morris was building and trying
I
to do.
get you. I get you. I get you.
Yeah.
I just had one little pushback with
No, yeah,
with that.
that makes sense too. That's definitely true.
But my fatal flaw, it's funny that you talked about them last year and being in the same place because my fatal flaw for them is the same thought that I had last year. Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is going to be their ceiling. They expect Kyle Pitts to be better than he actually is. Here's my problem with not just Kyle Pitts, but tight ends like Kyle Pitts. The tight end position, you need to be able to block. There needs to be a distinguishing factor between your blocking ability and you just being a big wide receiver. And I feel like Kyle Pitts is a big wide receiver. If you just line him up outside, still could get covered by some of these corners. And you're figuring out matchups to kind of free him up and make him look like what you wanted him to do. I thought that was a mistake drafting him even from the beginning. because they got Bijan Robinson there. If you don't have a tight end that can block, you're inhibiting the focal point of your team. So not only do you not have the guy that you think you have, you're holding back, in my opinion, Bijan Robinson, okay, who I think is amazing, who I think is the best running back in the NFL. Does that mean Bijan's not going to have a great year? I think he's going to have a wonderful year. I think he's the best running back in the NFL. Kyle Pitts, though, on the other hand, they're not lining him up. They can put a cornerback on him even in run on run plays, and it still is going to be like, so what? So I don't think he puts pressure on a defense like you think he's supposed to be able to.
I definitely agree with that. I think the one thing that's different when it comes to a guy like Kyle Pitts is you have to take chances with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the get wide open guy. He's not the run the good route type tight end. He's the 50-50 ball guys, make the spectacular catch in coverage, things like that. I think with having Tua there, he's more of the gambling type quarterback. So if he is the starter, I think he'll take certain chances downfield with a Kyle Pitts to give him opportunity rather than, these quarterbacks that just were, especially being younger and too scared and looking for the wide open guy. And then we got Drake London. It was kind of like the Drake London show. You're handing the ball off to Bijan or you're throwing it to Drake London. I think now you got a guy who is going to take more chances downfield, and it might help Kyle Pitts, but I agree. I don't think Kyle Pitts is who everybody thinks he is anymore. I used to. I thought I saw the potential in him,
Never really
but it's
liked
like
the
we're at the potential now.
Yeah, I never really liked the pick. Not in the first. Not for the top
I
five.
thought he was going to. I thought he was going to be a game changing tight end in a specific kind of offense, and he hasn't shown it. You know what I mean? And
I saw it coming. See, the problem with that is, and then we'll move on from here. The problem with that is Jimmy Graham was actually successful for a period of time until he got put into a situation where they're not going to throw the ball all over the field, and they have to run the ball. And then his productivity dropped. But Jimmy Graham, I think, is a better option. I think Jimmy Graham is better than Kyle Pitts.
But I think Jimmy Graham. I just think Jimmy Graham, even though he wasn't super old, I think he caught it late. I don't think Jimmy Graham was a terrible blocker.
See, I think he was.
I don't think he was terrible. Was he as good as the other guys that were there at the time, around at the time and stuff like that? No. But I don't think he was as bad as like Kyle Pitts is as a blocker.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Pitts really doesn't he doesn't stand a chance. It's like you literally take him out the game.
That's what I'm saying.
You take him out of the game.
That's what I'm saying.
Block and then put him in the. So it's like what they're.
This is what I'm saying. The problem is they looked at Kyle Pitts and said, "Oh, Jimmy Graham, look what he did when he had Drew Brees and everything." And I
just didn't expect Kyle Pitts. I didn't expect Kyle Pitts to be this bad of a blocker.
I did.
Because in Florida, it was like in college it's different. You feel me? So you see it a little bit different. Like, nah, you could get in front of a guy at least. Like he doesn't even really get in front of a guy. Like
no, so that's what I'm saying. When you at Florida and you playing against college teams, you really not all the players that you're playing against are not NFL players. You know what I'm saying? So he don't.
And offensive design, it's like just tip and get downfield, option route and stuff like that. So it's the game is different. So yes, he came and his flaw has definitely been exposed, and I agree with that. Yeah, you definitely have to be a tight end that can block. You don't have to be a blocking tight end, but you have to get out there and block so that way you can disguise your offense in a good way. And he's a flaw at that. So yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Moving on, but let's stay in the NFC South, right? Yeah. The New Orleans Saints. I said won the last 6 games of their season last year. Finished. So they went 6-2 at the end of the year last year, which is phenomenal. New Orleans Saints, 2026. What's their fatal flaw now, as opposed to last year?
I think their fatal flaw is, even though he played well, I think as far as getting to the next level, I don't think the quarterback play is there. Like, we always talk about that young guy who comes in, makes it look good that first year, and then you get film on him. where
Yes.
certain quarterbacks go past that. Like we see what Bo Nix did, you know what I mean? Like it's different. I think with Tyler, I can't even pronounce. I don't remember his last name.
Who show?
But
Tyler Show.
Shaw. But I think he's the quarterback that they're going to get film on, and now he looks very, very regular. And I think that's going to be the struggle. So you have to do a lot of building around him, and they have made some adjustments and move on. What ETN's there, right? Yeah, he just got signed.
Yes, Travis.
Yeah, in all seasons. So they got got a running back. Still got Kamara. I mean, they have one of the best young wide receivers in the league. So I just think that situation is going to be their downfall at the end of the day because I believe they're going to put all the eggs in that basket now.
Okay. So let me ask you a quick question. Let me ask you a question. Yeah. If we were just talking about record for the Saints, when do you think you can range? You don't got to be exact. Just range how many wins you think they got this year?
6.
Okay, so that's okay.
So what they ended their season off on a run, they're going to win that many games. What? Because they won 5-game winning streak, 6-game winning streak.
Yeah,
they're going to win about that many games this season because they're going to see how much harder it is. This year.
So my fatal flaw for the Saints, all right. So I agree with you to an extent. My fatal flaw for the Saints is they just need to turn over this roster. The roster, it's as a whole, is just not ready to really honestly be a competitive roster. They have like guys like Cameron Jordan, who had a great career, is now old. Okay, so he's like, you're gonna have to get off that contract and then replace the productivity. And then they got a lot of young guys who are still unproven and were better than we thought they were going to be last year, whether that's coaching or talent. And you're right, we still need to see that coming into this year. But like what I saw from Tyler Shaw, I didn't expect to see that in his whole career, let alone his rookie year. And I think it's really impressive that he stepped in, considering the circumstances, and was able to do something. Listen, I'm always a fan, even if you're a bad team, the fact that you can catch fire or get a rhythm going with something bad, going to get something good, I'm always a fan of that. So I'm a little bit more optimistic on what they'll do. I can see them winning. It's not too much of a difference, but like 7 or 8 games. So I don't but that could be a late run like they did last year, and they already are out the playoffs, and they just get to 8 games. But I can see them very easily getting like 7 games and improving upon that. But after this year, if I think I see what I think I'm going to see this year from them, coming next year, I'm gonna have a very different conversation about the New Orleans Saints, because the direction, I saw the culture, I saw the direction. They got 2 running backs. They can run the ball more now and protect not just the quarterback but their defense. And I actually like that what they're doing. So
their defense is their defense. I think that part of their team culture changed drastically this year. They really started to believe in their defensive unit. Now, like you said, some of those pieces are getting a little up there, but I think that actually helps more than it hurts because you're not dealing with a bunch of young talent that's trying to get it together and as is changing in culture, but you're dealing with a mix of very young talent and very solid vets that bring a certain aura to that team. And I think it became more of a defensive minded team than what we're used to seeing the Saints being an offensive powerhouse team. And I just, even with, having Kellen Moore over there and being an offensive minded guy, I just think the offensive part of, because I mean, let's be real, like Alvin Kamara, yes, he is who he is, but he's not the same Alvin Kamara he was a couple years ago. Travis Etienne, I mean, he started to show promise again, but he kind of 1 foot out the door because he was losing his job anyway. So let's see if those guys can get it back going, and if you're going to rely on your run game and your defense and build that way, or are you going to say, I got this young quarterback, I got this young wide receiver, let's go make the next Jamar Chase or whatever you want to say. You feel me? So
got you. Okay, cool. So let's jump back over to the AFC North. Cincinnati Bengals, coming off a rough season last year, to say the least. What's their fatal flaw for the Cincinnati Bengals?
One word: defense.
Mm-hmm.
It's you have to invest so much more in your defense. And then it kind of goes to the conversation we've been having about the Bengals for a couple of years. When you start talking about investing and you start talking about salaries and you start talking about money.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still not on the same page as you as far as the wide receiver thing, but this does become one of the problems when you have a terrible defense,
Mm-hmm.
lose your best defensive player probably, and regardless of the moves you try to make, because they did make a lot of they made a lot of acquisitions on trying to build that defense back up.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to put the it guys in that room, and you really don't have them.
Right.
And you can score 50 points a game if you want to. They did make some moves for that offensive line to help that offensive line, to help Joe Burrow, to help that offense. But we've seen a couple of times last year where even when Joe Burrow's on fire, even when the offense is clicking, on the other end, they're not stopping anybody.
Okay.
And until they are able to stop people,
Mm-hmm.
they ain't never gonna sniff that promised land again.
Okay. Okay. So I'm so glad that you said what you said, because you know where I'm going with this. The fatal flaw for the Cincinnati Bengals, once again, is that this wide receiver core has two wide receivers making number one wide receiver money. You say it's because of or the defense. I'm saying they don't have the money to fill in the blanks on the defense properly because they're paying so much money in their wide receiver core. You also said that their offensive line is improved. That offensive line sucks. And I'm gonna give you a name, and this is my fear for Joe Burrow. Andrew Luck. He's been taking entirely too many hits. You know what happens to quarterbacks after they get hit too many times. They turn into a guy that's like, I can't step up into the pocket. I'm tired of getting hit. It hurts. I'm tired of putting these pieces together. He hinted at this offseason, possibly even retiring earlier. And I can see it happen. They never surrounded him with what he needed. Now, I'm aware that he wanted both of these wide receivers. I'm aware of that. But that's why job titles are job titles, and the GM is supposed to be smarter in terms of understanding a roster. Hold on. In terms of building a roster, the GM is supposed to be smarter than the quarterback. Okay, so even though he wanted both of the wide receivers, he's supposed to sit Joe Burrow down and say, "Let me tell you something, brother. I can't protect you, and I can't give you a defense that's going to win a Super Bowl because of this. But if you let me trade them, I think I can overachieve with what it is, and I'll still give you good enough wide receivers, and then build the roster. This roster sucks, and it's supposed to be good.
They've added 2 Pro Bowlers to the offensive line.
Orlando Brown
and Dolan Rosner, great acquisitions.
Okay, cool.
So it's they're in the right. They're going in the right direction. Now we got to see how the O-line gels and stuff with adding, but those are 2 major pieces that you add to your offensive line. So now let's say it does scale down the hits, the sacks, and those things, and he's more comfortable. You
has no defense.
Yeah, and that's why I think that's more of the problem.
No,
that's more of the problem, but I don't all think that's all necessarily because they don't have the money for the defense. I think they bring in the wrong guys on the defense.
Mm-hmm.
And because there are guys that aren't making top safety,
they got
top
Dexter
corner
Lawrence.
money.
They got Dexter Lawrence this offseason too.
Yes. But I think it's the way that defense is. Interior defensive lineman is nowhere near enough. I don't care if it was Aaron Donald. It's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
You got too many holes on your defense. You need linebacker play. You need pass rush. You need your best pass rusher wasn't that great of a pass rusher. You need corners. The only thing they have had consistently, I would say, is great safety play. But that for a defense to be, it doesn't matter if everything else is breaking down. Now you just got a safety that's getting picks and making all the tackles because the linebackers and corners aren't helping.
Mm-hmm.
So They just gotta they gotta be able to build that defense better. If money is the real issue, then I'll agree with you. But I don't think that's the biggest part of why their defense is bad. I think they are trying their best to they tried their best to build on their offense and they didn't worry about the defense. I don't think it's just the 2 wide receiver money and all that. I think it was so much more of that. Well, let's see what we could do for Joe Burrow. And it's like, yo, y'all not even thinking about the other side of the ball.
So basically, in conclusion, the answer could have been GM.
Well,
but it could have been GM. I'm
Yep.
looking at it. I'm glad that you on the other side of that. You're saying defense. I'm saying cool. I love that answer because it is a symptom of the problem.
So we can agree that GM is the biggest flaw.
Yes.
Okay, that's I'll accept that. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that.
Yes. Let's see. Yo, honestly, we're doing really good with these. How about this? Let's take 5.
Okay.
Let's take 5, and then we'll do the other 4 teams in the division. And yeah, and that'll be that. All right. So let's take 5 real quick. We'll get back to part 2.